Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction, and thank you very much for this invitation. And in the person, I don't know, Reverend Chairwoman, I don't know, Miss Anna Maria Tarantula, I really want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be present in this high level meeting. It's very important and very interesting. So, ladies and gentlemen, our European Union arose from the ashes of the Second World War. Never again was the motto, and Europeans came together and made a commitment to peace, a commitment to democracy, and a commitment to cooperation and solidarity. These core values were built into our foundational treaties, our decision-making, our foreign policy, in short, our DNA. Cooperation and solidarity, more than an option or a political choice, are a real necessity in a polity such as the European Union. For any union is as strong as its weakest link. Fragmentation, disparities, cracks, if left unaddressed, can pose existential risks to the entire construct. This is why, very early on, we had to devise policies and mechanisms to help us to preserve unity and cohesion. For example, we realized that the mere functioning of a free market at the European level could lead to some very uneven outcomes, that there would have to be some mechanisms for rebalancing at the European level. And this is in fact my job as European Commissioner for Cohesion and Reforms. European cohesion policy is there to ensure that with each spin of the wheel of fate and with each new throw of the economic dice, no region is left behind and no place in Europe feels forgotten. The challenge changes over time, of course, but our commitment remains to cooperation and fairness. Over the years, we have tackled the local impacts of various waves of industrial restructuring. Whether textiles or heavy industry, we have tackled the local impacts of the move to the single market and the single currency, and we have managed the accession of Central and Eastern European economies. Each of these events has provoked challenges which fall particularly in certain places. Managing each challenge has been a long-term process of investment and applied solidarity, and we have had to adapt our methods and learn new tools of cooperation. The results are slow, but sure. And we are very pleased to see that the World Bank has nicknamed Europe the convergence machine, because we take disparities and slowly we try to iron them out. For example, if you look at a country like Lithuania, Lithuania's GDP per head, adjusting for purchasing power, went from 49% of the EU average in the year 2004 to 84% of the EU average in 2019. So effectively, from living standard just under half the European average to well above 3/4 of the European average, a halving of disparities over the space of 15 years. This is quite remarkable, I think, and I could quote other countries. In my job, I am very cautious that every crisis and every long-term change is a test to our solidarity, a test of our cooperation. Sometimes we struggle, sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. In the financial crisis of 2008, it took Europe 4 years to find a coherent response. The whatever it takes, famous whatever it takes by Mario Draghi, only came in 2012. Although in the end, we emerged with a banking union, with common resolution schemes and common supervision in the banking sector. It's not finished, but is halfway through. Sometimes we aced the test. The black swan of COVID is arguably the biggest challenge we have faced as a union. We learned the lessons from the previous crisis, and in less than 4 weeks, we had emergency support on the ground. Under cohesion policy, we have enabled for the first time in history the almost full flexibility of all unused funds to cater for the immediate needs. So after this change, more than 20 billion euros of emergency support were mobilized so far until now for emergency medical support, emergency grants, and low interest rate loans to nearly about 1 million small and medium-sized businesses to keep these businesses afloat. Emergency support for short-time working arrangements to keep workers in their jobs, support to schools to become digital. And there is also the story of vaccines, how Europeans worked together on joint procurement of vaccines, building capacity together, rather than competing with each other over a limited stock. In addition, we are working to provide vaccines to the rest of the world, and I will return to this topic in a moment. In addition, we have also taken the historical decision to go together to the financial markets, to make a once-in-a-generation investment in solidarity, with the most solidarity in relation to the most impacted member states for a joint recovery and a common transition to the new economic paradigm. Well, this is the story of Europe, a series of challenges, and in each crisis we have had to work together, to cooperate. Sometimes this is not the initial instinct of member states, we know it. But time and again, it became clear that we are tied to each other and that only together we can overcome the major challenges. The phoenix of better cooperation rising stronger from the ashes of each crisis. But there is no room for complacency, as the risk of cracks, fragmentation and division is always present. And as I look to the future, cooperation will be needed more than ever before, because there are no issues where less cooperation is the answer. So what is our agenda for cooperation? It starts with cooperation within Europe and between Europeans. They say that charity begins at home. We are particularly concerned by poverty, despite our efforts. In 2019, around 91 million people, so 20% of the European Union population, were still at risk of poverty or social exclusion. And this is concentrated in certain places, pockets of poverty and deprivation, as well as among certain groups. As Europeans, we are committed to equal opportunities for all, regardless of their gender, sexual orientation, age, religion, or belief, or racial or ethnic origin. My department, Cohesion Policy, continues to invest in the development of all of Europe's regions, and every local area is in need, investing in local jobs, in education, in local infrastructure, and in local public services. But there is also room for further cooperation in Europe's growing social economy, which this social economy already accounts for 8% of Europe's GDP, involving up to 2.8 million enterprises and contributing to 13.6 million jobs. Social economy organizations, faith groups, are a key element in local development, making a particular contribution to quality of life. We are always looking for partners throughout the life cycle of our actions. Those who will help plan and design programs, as well as those who will propose or implement projects. We need all the expertise we can get as Europe and the world embark on a transition to digital and green economy. We cannot allow the opening of a new digital divide, and this is a risk. And as the needs of the planet require a different lifestyle, We must help every region succeed in a world of very different patterns of production and patterns of consumption. But this brings me to global cooperation. The key issues of the future cannot be solved by any power acting alone. We live on a small planet, and our lives are increasingly interconnected, as it was very clearly evidenced in this morning session. We in Europe are very, very conscious of the need for a global cooperation. The first and most obvious cooperation these days is on vaccination. We have worked together within Europe, already delivering over 700 million vaccines, already a feat of cooperation. But we have also already provided over 1 billion vaccines to the rest of the world. No other bloc or country has exported as many vaccines as Europe. And Europe is one of the leading players in the COVAX accelerator, a global partnership to ensure that all countries have access to tests, treatments, and vaccines. Team Europe has committed 3.2 billion euros, and COVAX has already shipped over 200 million doses of vaccines to 138 countries, with many more to come. It's not even half done, but there is a process going on. Making sure that everyone is vaccinated is an ethical imperative, as well as a sanitary necessity. COVID has taught us that no one is safe until everybody is safe. It is with the same spirit that we approach a second area where global cooperation is a must, the environment, of course. If we want to continue living on this planet, and we do, then we all must live differently. We must change the way we produce and consume. Rich countries must take the lead in this. And Europe has taken a particular lead since the Kyoto Protocol. And for us, this is not just words, but deeds. We are showing the path with the European Green Deal and our commitment of climate neutrality by 2050. We are also leading on green financing. Europe is by now the largest issuer of green bonds. Third, we are key players in development assistance. For example, in terms of our support for food security and agricultural stability in the most needy countries. Earlier this year, here in Rome, the Director General of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization was very kind to say, to applaud Europe's commitment to the cause. And our commitment to multilateral cooperation called us the reliable partner. We hope we are. Fourth, we will continue to strive for global cooperation to become the norm and not the exception. Although we see a return to great power politics, old rivalries, and the emergence of new ones, Europe will continue to advocate for multilateralism and a more cooperative world order. And this is what we in Europe will seek to be: a reliable partner, a responsible global actor, cooperating on a host of issues, from peace and development to fairer corporate tax systems, from a cleaner planet to regulation on the new digital economy, including artificial intelligence. In conclusion, Europe was born in crisis and has grown through cooperation in crisis. So it is in our DNA to deal with crisis with cooperation and solidarity. This DNA comes from many places, including our civic and humanistic values, which to a large extent are shared with this community of believers. In future, this DNA of cooperation must spread throughout the world, and we must all learn how to use each crisis as an opportunity to grow in cooperation. Because whether you are a believer or a non-believer, we are all in the same boat. We cannot say to others, your end of the boat is sinking. And if we are to successfully confront the challenges of the coming years, artificial intelligence, the climate emergency, poverty and hunger, the spread of democracy, the rule of law. To successfully manage all these challenges, we are going to have to work together. Inspiration and not domination, cohesion and not coercion, cooperation and not confrontation. Europe is ready. Thank you once again.